when we consider what's going on in the world, where we've come to, there's a fundamental, which is first and foremost, the message always is have some awareness about how you're feeling. How are you seeing the world? Are you looking through rose colored glasses? Are you surrounded by people who will actually support and uh, ask you tough questions? And are you in a space and have you created an environment for yourself to have really meaningful conversations? I talked on one of my podcasts, I think when you were in Spain, I talked about being authentic and can you be vulnerable? And that doesn't go just for women, that's for men as well. But you need to create that environment for yourself, that circle of influence or that circle of friends, if you will, that you can have those meaningful conversations where you're not having a conversation, a circular conversation in your head. There's a part of this too, is that even as you're speaking, is that we have to be careful of what are we bringing with us into a new era. What do we want to let go? We've let go of some relationships. As some of you who have been on the podcast for a while, we had a business in Edmonton. We have a business in Edmonton, 2 locations, retail, and we had to shut one of those locations down during the lockdown, etc. Now, at the time, I was really pissed off, and I was really pissed off because I had no choice. It was like this thing that the government had done. I didn't agree with it. Long story short, we shut the store down. We made the decision we made. We went through and did some really smart things in that transition back and into one store. Now, 2 years later, or almost 2 years later, turned out to be a really great outcome, a great decision, great team, one store, very, very strong, very solid. Turned out to be really great. Relationships that we were hanging on to pre-pandemic, and then we start to see the shift in values when the pressure gets up, right? When the pressure starts to mount, you start to see who people are, and that goes both sides. I'm not saying that people looked at us and thought we were remarkable. I'm just saying we then parted ways. Point is, 3 years later, 4 years later, turns out to be a really great move. We aren't carrying that baggage forward. Now, as we go into the new era, we start to understand that, there's maybe some things that we are hanging on to, whether that's a thought process, whether that's a dream, a wish, if only things were like they were before, if only he or she were like they were before. Is it time to let go of some old stories that you're telling yourself? There's a fundamental story that we share, another metaphor, is that, I don't know where the story comes from, and I'm just going to really paraphrase the story, which is a long time ago, they would trap monkeys. And this is many years ago, whatever country, I'm not even sure where, but the story is actually good in that it makes sense. And they used to trap the monkeys by drilling holes in the ground. There's other ways to do it, but ultimately they would put holes in the ground that a monkey could put their fist in or put their hand in, and then they put food in there. Now, the trap was this. When the monkey grabbed the food, we'll call it the banana, when the monkey grabbed the banana, the only way they could ever get out their fist out of that hole was to let go of the banana. Now, they wouldn't let go of the banana, and literally the hunters would walk up to them and capture them. Now, the point is this. All they had to do was let go of the banana, and they could then be free to go. And they just couldn't let go of the banana. So the question we ask ourselves is, what are we hanging on to? What are we hanging on to that we want to take into this new era? And does it really serve us? Is it an old story, an old relationship, even a job? Maybe it's time to let go. The point is this, is that when we go into a new era, being mindful, we have to complete, which means we have to let go of things. We're actually going to be talking about that, where you and I are doing a presentation at the Accelerator event on the 23rd. So depending on when you're listening to this, if you want to join us for that, you can register for that. The point is this. What are we hanging on to that we actually need to let go of? And when we start to get really clear that there are some things that we just have to let go, we can then transition into the new era, and we can maybe do it with grace. There'll probably be a little discomfort along the way, but I think that many could realize that there is a bright future if you're not trying to hang on to the past and bring it with you.
And I think part of that monkey story is what's so great about it is that and I don't think you're comparing me to a monkey, but there's some things that when you realize that you can let go of that banana and take your hand, and there's a whole plethora of fruit around you and other bananas and other people that and other maybe monkeys that have other things they want to share with you. But the control and the grip on that banana with your hand and your fist stuck in that hole is truly about fear, and it's about lack, and it's about having a
Mm.
mindset of poverty. It's a lack mindset. So by softening, loosening the grip on the banana and taking the hand out, it's trusting that there's going to be more food there. There's trusting that there's going to be more abundance, and trusting that you're going to be supported. And I think that's the transition as we go from one era into this new era, is that we don't have to be afraid if we trust. And you and I've gone through the eye of the needle so many times and so many different things. And yes, it's been difficult, but there's not been one time that our life hasn't grown or the people around us haven't stood up and shown up for us, and vice versa. So let's let go of this banana, whatever this banana is, and enter the new era with instead of a fist, maybe an open hand and an open heart, and move into it in a way that we can be open to possibilities and be maybe a little bit excited about being uncertain and excited about possibilities. And yes, going back into our memory and maybe feeling nostalgic, thinking the way that it was a certain way and maybe it was better, but not to live there, because we have the opportunity as human being, as conscious sentient beings, is to live in the moment and to live into a very powerful and compelling future. And I think that's what I'm excited about, talking on June 23rd on Friday night, where I get to be with you. I don't know if we're going to do a version of Mindset Matters, but we're going to talk about the new era, and we're going to talk about and drill down and maybe tell some stories about, how this can work and how it has worked and how it hasn't worked. But going forward, I think if we just acknowledge as a culture, as human beings, that we're going from one stage of life to another. It doesn't matter where we are, but as a collective, we have to acknowledge it on some level, and to don't live in the past if we can, because it's gone. The pasta is the pasta, as my Italian friend says.
Okay, that's really bad. So listen, folks, when you
Really
consider
bad.
where you're at, the new era has in fact arrived. We have pulled the future into the present. We are always pulling the future into the present, and you cannot hang on to the past and step into the future. There are things that you are going to have to let go of and be mindful of it. And of course, sometimes it is uncomfortable, it is painful. It's like literally, crashing at the bottom of the hill so you don't go over the edge. But the point is you come out maybe with some bumps and bruises, but you are there to thrive and to actually excel into what is next.